Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other. You know the feeling in your body long before your mind can find the words to describe it. It starts as a subtle tightening right in the center of your chest, a sudden shallowness in your breath when they enter the room, the invisible weight that drops onto your shoulders, pressing you down into a smaller, quieter version of yourself. You feel a strange, creeping exhaustion settling deep into your bones. Not the exhaustion of physical labor, but the draining fatigue of walking on eggshells. You watch your words. You carefully curate your facial expressions, terrified that a stray glance might trigger a storm. You feel like a puppet, tangled in invisible strings, and the person holding those strings is pulling, always pulling. But here is the central mystery that has been haunting you. Look closely at the person pulling your strings. Look past their loud demands, their subtle manipulations, their cool critiques. They are not a god. They are not a titan. In fact, they are profoundly fragile. So why do the people who seem the most emotionally fragile, the most utterly hollow inside, demand the absolute most control over your life? Imagine a man sitting alone in a dimly lit study. Outside his window, the world is descending into the madness of the 20th century. Dictators are rising. Masses are cheering for their own enslavement. But the man in the study is not looking at the political rallies. He is looking inward, into the deepest, darkest corridors of the human psyche. This man is Carl Gustav Jung, the most insecure. And as he studies the grand tyrants of the world and the quiet tyrants of the household, he discovers a terrifying, undeniable truth. Control is never a symptom of strength. Tyranny, whether it is wielded by a ruthless dictator or a passive-aggressive partner, is always born from a pathetic, agonizing weakness. Jung realized that the human mind is a master of disguise. When a soul is fundamentally shattered, when it lacks internal sovereignty, it creates a mask of absolute authority to hide a trembling, terrified child. To understand this, we must take a deep dive into the architecture of the mind. We must speak of the shadow. Carl Jung taught us that the psyche demands balance. If there is a conscious attitude of extreme righteousness, there is an unconscious shadow of deep guilt. And if there is a conscious behavior of relentless control, there is an unconscious reality of absolute helplessness. Jung called this mechanism psychic compensation. Imagine a vast, ancient castle built on a crumbling, rotten foundation. The king inside this castle knows the floors are giving way. He knows the walls are cracking. He is terrified of the dark, terrified of the structural collapse happening right beneath his feet. But instead of going down into the dark basement to fix the rot, what does the frightened king do? He climbs to the highest tower and begins screaming orders at the villagers below. He micromanages the farmers. He dictates what the merchants can wear. Because if he can completely control the external world, he can distract himself from the terrifying chaos of his internal world. This is the exact anatomy of the weak person who is trying to control you. They are internally hollow. They possess no emotional regulation, no spiritual anchor, no solid sense of self. Left alone with their own thoughts, they would disintegrate into the void of their own inadequacy. So, they use you. They use you as an external scaffolding to hold up their collapsing ego. Jung explained this through the phenomenon of projection. Weak people are haunted by their own shadow. They are disgusted by their own powerlessness. But facing that powerlessness would require a level of courage they simply do not possess. So, they take their internal chaos and they project it onto you. If they feel chaotic, they will accuse you of being unstable. If they feel inadequate, they will meticulously point out your every flaw. If they feel out of control, they will put you in a cage. Because if you're in a cage, they feel safe. Think of it like a drowning man in the middle of a black, freezing ocean. When a drowning man sees a rescuer swimming toward him, he does not greet them with gratitude. In his blind, animalistic panic, he climbs on top of the rescuer. He pushes the rescuer's head under the water. He will drown you just to catch a single breath of air. He doesn't hate you. He does not even see you as a human being. To the weak, controlling person, you are not a person at all. You are an emotional flotation device. You are a mirror designed only to reflect their illusion of power back to them. There are many masks this weakness can wear. Sometimes it wears the mask of the tyrant, the boss who belittles you in front of the team, the father who demands absolute, unquestioning obedience. They control through fear because fear is the only language their shadow understands. But sometimes the weakness wears a much more insidious mask, the mask of the victim, the friend who is always in a crisis, demanding you drop everything to save them. The mother who sighs and tells you how much she sacrificed for you. They do not use anger to control you. They use guilt. They weaponize their own fragility. They lay their bleeding heart at your feet and make you responsible for its beating. This is what Jungian psychology reveals as the darkest form of manipulation, the tyranny of the weak. They chain you to them with their suffering. If you try to pull away, you are the villain. If you set a boundary, you are abandoning them. They consume your psychic energy, siphoning your life force to fill a black hole inside themselves that can never be filled. And every time you yield to them, every time you shrink yourself so they can feel tall, you are not helping them. You are feeding their sickness. You are participating in the destruction of your own soul. You are letting their shadow devour your light. So, how do you break the spell? How do you cut the invisible strings? How do you reclaim your psychic sovereignty from a person who is terrified of your independence? Carl Jung did not just map the darkness. He gave us the torch to navigate it. The path out of this psychological prison requires a radical transformation. It requires you to step into the fire of individuation. Here are the 3 specific, actionable steps to break the control of the weak. Step 1. The mirror of indifference. You must radically shift your perception of their behavior. Right now, when they attack you, criticize you, or manipulate you, you absorb it. You think it is about you.
You defend yourself? You try to make them understand? Stop. You must realize that you are merely an extra in their psychological drama. When they lash out, you must look at them not as an authority figure, but as a terrified child throwing a tantrum in the dark. When they attempt to project their shadow onto you, you must become a pane of glass. Let their words pass entirely through you. Do not argue. Do not justify your actions to a person who is committed to misunderstanding you. Silence is a mirror. When you offer them absolute, unbothered indifference. Their projection bounces off of you and returns directly to them. They are forced to look at their own hideous reflection. They will rage. They will escalate. But you must hold the line of indifference. Your lack of emotional reaction starves their parasite. Step 2. The radical severing of the supply. Weak controllers are psychic vampires. They feed on your emotional responses, your guilt, your fear, your desperate attempts to appease them. You must turn off the tap. This means establishing boundaries made of iron. A boundary is not a negotiation. A boundary is not something you ask them to respect. A boundary is a statement of what you will do. If you speak to me in that tone, I will leave the room. If you attempt to guilt me, I will end the phone call. And then you must execute the consequence with cold, mechanical precision. They will accuse you of being cruel. They will tell everyone you are heartless. Let them. You must be willing to be the villain in their delusion in order to be the hero of your own reality. When you sever the supply of your emotional energy, their illusion of control collapses. They are left completely alone with the terrifying void inside themselves. This is the greatest act of tough love you can ever provide. You are forcing them to face their own shadow. Step 3. The integration of your own monster. This is the deepest and most profound step of all. Why were they able to control you in the first place? Why did you tolerate the invisible strings? Because you, too, have a shadow. Perhaps your shadow is the deeply buried belief that you are unworthy of love unless you are useful. Perhaps it is the terrified child inside you who believes that setting a boundary will result in abandonment. Carl Jung said that to be truly good, you must integrate your shadow. You must realize that harmlessness is not a virtue. If you were a rabbit, you are not moral simply because you don't bite. You are just weak. To protect yourself against the tyrants of the world, you must grow fangs. You must discover your own capacity for danger. You must locate the primal, aggressive energy buried deep within your own unconscious, and you must bring it into the light. You do not use this energy to harm others. You use it as a sword, resting peacefully at your side, a silent promise to anyone who crosses your path that you are not to be trifled with. When you integrate your shadow, your posture changes, your gaze becomes steady, the pitch of your voice drops. Weak, controlling people are predators, and predators can smell a victim. But when you integrate your monster, you stop smelling like prey. You emit an aura of quiet, dangerous peace. And the weak will instinctively retreat into the shadows where they belong. The journey of breaking free from the weak is not a journey of external combat. It is a journey of internal excavation. It is the painful, glorious process of becoming who you were always meant to be, an individuated self, a fortress of peace, a lighthouse standing firm amidst the crashing waves of other people's chaos. You are no longer a repository for their brokenness. You are no longer the scaffolding for their crumbling ego. You breathe in, and the chest opens. You step forward, and the invisible strings fall away into dust. You leave the terrified king in his crumbling tower. You walk out into the open world, under the vast, untamed sky, free, whole, untouchable, because you finally understand the grand illusion of human behavior. You understand why the loudest voices ring so hollow, and why the tightest grip always belongs to the most trembling hand. You understand the profound tragedy of the human condition,
because where power predominates, love is lacking, and the one is always the shadow of the other.